call to our November 18th JEA Board of Directors to order, please. Could I ask everyone please stand for a time of reflection, and our secretary will lead us in the pledge following that. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like for a motion to adopt the agenda that you have in front of you.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Fine. Safety briefing. Sherry English. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you.
Bundled up accordingly.
Hello, I'm Sherry English, and I'm going to give you your safety presentation. In the case of emergency and the need to evacuate the building, we'll be using the stairwell to the left of the elevators. Please be aware of hazards in the room while exiting, such as people, furniture, etc., things on the floor. Fire extinguishers are located to the left of elevators, but should be used only to clear your exit. Descend the stairs quickly but safely, and please hold the handrails. Our meeting location is on the corner of Main and Ashley, which is the First Baptist Church parking. Mike Brost will call 911, and Jane Upton will call JEA Security if needed. And Joy Gutos is CPR certified and willing to assist. Is there anybody else in the room that also? Thank you very much. Please check to see that your cell phones are turned off or vibrate, and then the restrooms are located to the right of the elevators. Well, I'm delighted to tell you that I have been with JEA for 9 months, and I love it. I do. We have such an important mission, and I'm privileged to work alongside each of you in fulfilling that. I'm the manager of community engagement. I work directly under Jane Upton, and my chief and vice president is Monica Whiting. I oversee 3 components of our customer and community engagement activities: our employee community volunteerism, our employee fundraising campaigns such as United Way, healthcare charities, and right now we're in the middle of an employee drive to a food drive for the holidays. So we have very generous and dedicated employees, and I'm delighted to be able to head those things up. Also community engagement through our ambassadors program. That's something we've been working very hard on the last couple of months. We're about to train hopefully 100 employees to be warriors out in the community to help us at community events, facility tours, community education opportunities such as Junior Achievement and United Way's Real Sense, and then we have a speakers bureau as well. For the 20 years preceding JEA, I was a nonprofit fundraising professional. My last 2 positions were 8 years at Community Hospice of Northeast Florida, and I had the privilege of working for 6 years at the Jacksonville Museum of Modern Art down the street. It's now MoCA, and Peter was one of our board members. I got to work with you for 6 years. I live in Murray Hill, and I'll be celebrating my 20-year anniversary with my husband next year. We have 3 adult children, 3 grandchildren, and I'm currently on the boards of the local chapters of the Planned Giving Council and Groundwork Jacksonville. I'm delighted to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Moving on, comments from the public. I have one card, Mr. John Nooney. Yes, sir. Please come to the podium, please, sir. And if you would state your name and address, and we have 3 minutes for you, sir. And welcome. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. My name is John Nooney, 8356 Bascom Road, Jacksonville, Florida, 32216. This is my first time ever before the JEA board, and the reason I was just here, I just saw, the Florida Times Union. Every issue is worth getting into, and here the JEA picks Healthy Town for the South Bank property, and what I've been doing, and what I would hope that JEA would support and promote, is with the kayaking downtown and public access to the river. And so what I am just simply here for today is just to ask the JEA for permission to access from the waterway, the south side property that's next to the school board. You know, I've been going by numerous times, and there's a lot of garbage that collects on that bank. And I would just like to just go forward and, you know, do cleanups, and then also just bring other people in, you know, to do the cleanups as well. And I just want really just a permission slip that it is okay with this board that I be allowed just to conduct that activity. And when I read in the paper that right here, it just says that, you know, that process will be part of the year-long due diligence process Element said it may need before closing on the property. So between that time, even if it's a one-year option, I would hope that this board would consider, you know, granting that permission slip. And I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, and I'd be more than happy to extend a kayak ride just to show you the debris that I'm talking about. You may or may not be familiar with it, but I just think it would just make the community a lot better.
Mr. Noonan, thank you very much for bringing it to our attention. I will take your, and I will make sure that the CEO and I both reach out. Let us see what we can do. It's our property, it's our responsibility. Let's look at that. But now that we know where we can reach you, thank you for bringing it to our attention. Let's see if we can do our part of the responsibility before we ask the public to do it. So we have your, but thank you for bringing it to our attention.
In the meantime, is there a temporary pass where I can keep doing what I'm doing?
There are all kinds of liabilities that, let us look at. You brought to our attention, we'll work on it, and we will work with you. We'll keep you posted.
Okay, well,
Honest,
thank you
Ninja.
for
You got my
listening.
word on it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Council liaison, Chairman Bill Bishop, present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today I want to talk about good things. I want to extend my sincere appreciation and thanks to everybody in JEA that was involved in the Clifton neighborhood cleanup and power restoration after yesterday's storm. Our little hamlet, if you will, got hammered by a tornado, I believe, knocked down trees everywhere. There were 4 power poles that got knocked down, wires down everywhere. It was a mess. And JEA's line crews were out there like that, and they worked diligently well into the night. Almost all of the neighborhood's power got restored. Probably half of it was restored by 7 o'clock last night, which was phenomenal. And the parts that were not, there's very, very few left, but the parts that were not quite done, the damage was extensive, and they were working on it when I got up this morning and left for the office. And so I know they're working very diligently to get it done. We all appreciate it very much, and everybody involved should be given our thanks and appreciation for a job well done. And I just wanted to pass that along. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sir.
good stuff.
You've taken one of my topics off for the chairman's report. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I will only be here another hour for that. Thank you. All right. We, for the consent agenda, you have Roman numeral A1 through 4 are action items, and Roman numeral A5 through 10 are provided for information. I'd like to have a motion that would move A1 through 4 as action, and then the motion would also be that 5 through 10 would be information.
Mr. Chairman, before that, I'd just like to point out that 3A4, since it is part of our policy that everyone recognizes, and maybe Melissa or someone, just do a brief thing of what we do. I know what we're doing, but just explain it so we get some clarification on it.
All right. Are you suggesting we pull 3A out?
I'm in all 4, but I just want it to be discussed, just briefly discussed.
Okay. All right. Discussion? All right, the motion,
No,
discussion?
Yes.
Melissa, discussion?
Yeah, in 3A4, at the end of each budget year, what we do is make transfers that are needed to balance the budget at the end of the year. And some of those are outside of the specific line items that are approved in the budget at the beginning of each year. So part of what we get authorized to do during the year is make these transfers and then submit them to the board for essentially ratification after the fact. So the transfers this year were primarily related to establishing actually the largest ones were bond buyback. we had an opportunity to buy some additional bonds in both the electric and the water and sewer systems, and that helped us end the year with a healthier debt-to-asset ratio. And then there were additional transfers, and apologies, I'm going from memory here, so hopefully somebody can hand me the agenda item if we need it. But there were additional transfers related to the establishment of a rate stabilization reserve to offset some of the Plant Vogtle expenses that come due prior to receiving power under that contract due to the construction delays at Plant Vogtle.
Okay. Now, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted for the record for those folks to know that we do have to have a balanced budget.
Yes.
And that's a process, so thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Show it. Adopted. Now, strategic discussions, JEA's 5-year plan. Melissa, you're back up.
Back up.
Back up.
I left too soon. This is a recap primarily of information that was presented last month with some additional context around credit. The additional context is actually a repeat of some of the things we talked about in the Finance and Audit Committee meeting a couple of hours ago. So I will go through this information pretty quickly. The first is just a recap on, at the end of fiscal year 2014, where we are from a credit perspective. We continue to be pressured in our debt metrics, but they're improving. And the improving debt metrics are what's going to offset, I hope, the continued outlier metrics that we're seeing versus our peer group among electric utilities. Transfer payments as a percentage of operating revenues continues to go the wrong way versus our peers, continues to increase. CapEx to depreciation was a very low capital year for 2014, and I know we've discussed this at a number of meetings prior to this one. It will require some explanation among the investment community, and the explanation is primarily tied to that we're not growing. Our operating metrics remain very, very healthy, and our level of capital spend is at a low point in our capital cycle. Over the long term, average is about 1 times, but we are hitting that low point now because of lack of growth. Coverage is under pressure, as we talked about during Finance and Audit. The way the rating agencies calculate coverage, it's not just debt service. They add in our contributions to city in that coverage calculation, and because of adding in the city contributions, we're seeing coverage of full obligations dip down to right about the median. That formerly was a significant credit strength of ours, which helped to offset our debt position and transfers, and it's coming under pressure, so it's something that we're monitoring very closely. And then days of liquidity is very consistent with our peer group in terms of that metric. Looking out in the projections and what we plan to discuss with the rating agencies in December, we are projecting flat unit sales at 12 million megawatt hours in the electric system. What that produces on rates is stable rates in the near term, and revenue requirements have less certainty as we look out farther. Some of that uncertainty is driven by the timing of when Plant Vogtle becomes operational, since that'll have a big impact on our purchase power expenses. For projections for this year, we do show a decline in the fuel rate beginning in 2018 and 2019, which helps offset some of that increase in base, and they're almost net neutral for the 5-year projection period at this point. From a debt perspective, we
Melissa,
project.
can I just ask one question on that?
Sure.
So in your in the bullets on the in the blue box, it says environmental regulations, if material, will be recovered via the environmental charge. So is there a separate charge on the bill for that?
There is.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, and we have the ability to adjust that separately from the rest of JEA's rate structure, and it provides a recovery mechanism for environmental charges.
Okay.
And that rate and that environmental charge will be determined how?
It's set through the same rate setting process and rate hearing process that we go through for other charges that are on the bill. It's recovered from a cost of service perspective. The costs that are associated with environmental compliance get allocated specifically to that charge.
Okay, but to pick up on Hussein's side, so if it materializes, we would then have to hold a public hearing to put that charge on the bill.
Yes, sir.
We would have to determine what that rate would be to offset if the environmental regulation goes through, we're able to calculate what that is, whatever that number X would be. The process would be, we would have to come back, hold a public hearing. In essence, that would be a rate increase to the ratepayers, and that would be added to the bill. Is that correct? That
Yes,
would be
sir.
the
We have an
process.
existing environmental charge, and any changes to that charge would require the rate hearing process.
Okay.
From a debt perspective, we're anticipating repaying just over $600 million in electric system debt over the next 5 years, which will put us in a much healthier position. Although from a debt-to-asset ratio perspective, we're projecting 69% at the end of 5 years, and that compares with the median among our peers of 53%. So continuing long-term problem in the electric system in terms of the balance sheet health. From a debt service coverage perspective, this is where, again, we're continuing to monitor these debt service coverage metrics very closely. We are bouncing around a bit, but in general, the trend is declining debt service coverage metrics, and it's being pressured by lower revenues and higher expenses, which equates to that lower coverage number. So right now, both the green line and the red line are projected to fall below the median for the AA rated peer group for those respective rating agencies. So something we'll continue to monitor. And this page 5 just provides the summary. I'm sorry, page 6 provides the summary and numbers of all the trends that we've been discussing.
What can we do about it, Melissa?
Coverage is a mathematical equation, and it simply looks at revenues and expenses versus as it compared with our fixed charges. So as we look out over the 5-year period, one thing to note, and one thing that does pressure coverage, is our assumptions around what variable interest rates are going to do. And not something we obviously have control over, but we control it to the extent we have refinancing opportunities and can continue to take advantage of very low fixed interest rates,
And
which
we
we've
have
done a lot of over the last few years.
Yeah, we have fixed a lot of that variable rate, so that reduces that.
It does, but we have remaining opportunities that we'll continue to opportunistically look for ways we can fix out. Otherwise, it really simply boils down to revenues and expenses and what's included in those fixed charges, including city contribution.
So revenues are the key.
Mm-hmm. Always revenue.
All right, thank you.
For the water and sewer system, again, similar story. We're projecting flat unit sales at 33 million kgals in water, which is very low historically, but is reflective of where we've gone in terms of the sales trend. We are predicting stable rates through the 5-year forecast period in the water and sewer system. Our debt-to-asset ratio is the bright spot in all of these 5-year projections. In water and sewer, we're projecting a repayment of almost $230 million over the next 5 years, which would bring our debt-to-asset ratio to 48% if that is executed as planned. And that is very near the median for AA-rated water utilities at 47%. So slightly above, but almost there. So I'm hopeful that we'll see a return to a manageable metric from a balance sheet perspective in the water and sewer utility. From a debt service coverage perspective, you do see an uptick in debt service and a decline in coverage that's shown in this 5-year projection period. The biggest single driver of that is the assumption related to variable interest rates, which is something that the rating analysts recognize in terms of our 5-year projections, and will, I don't believe will be surprising for them to see. And otherwise, coverage is quite healthy in water and sewer. And again, this is a summary of the numbers that we've just discussed in terms of 5-year projections. Any questions on any of the 5-year projections in either system? With some very small cleanup type changes, these are basically the numbers and the message we're going to be providing to the credit rating agencies in December.
Any other questions for Melissa on those two?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Bi-monthly operation presentation. Brian? Welcome, sir.
Thank
And
you.
then-
Good afternoon.
You will be followed by Mike. We'll talk about water and waste, and Monica will talk about chief presentation on other things. You're up.
As always, we start with safety first. Our recap of 2014, we didn't meet our targets of 2014. We had 47 recordables And most importantly, we had 7 recordables last October. We did not start off the year well last year. But this year, on good news, October, we started off much better. We had 3 recordables in October. So far as in November, we've had no recordables halfway through the month. So we started off a lot improvement. We worked on September last month. We had the presentation on the safety focus in the month of September, the awareness that we have all staff looking at safety. Our program this year is Plan for Zero. We looked at the 8 highest risk areas of director areas, basically the folks, the line maintainers, the pipe fitter areas, the treatment plants, the power plants, where you have most exposure to high risk, and we have a real focus on those 8 groups of field work. And we also have a better focus on near-miss reporting. So the Plan for Zero near-miss reporting is our focus this year, and we hope to continue to provide a lot better numbers than we did last year here. On the dollar per kgal, we're only 1 month through the year. We won't spend much time in the details of this one. And generally, in the water wastewater, it's fairly easy. $4 per kgal for water and $8 per kgal for sewer. Now, it might be right now at $4.54 as the year goes, depending on unit sales and exact expenditures. That'd be somewhere 4 and a few pennies. We plan on meeting our targets. Our targets were the FY12 baseline, the CTAs that we're using, both electric and water system. We have 3 numbers in electric, and go to the bottom, we have 3 numbers in the water wastewater system that drive it. First is debt service, which is not listed. Pretty well steady, about $120 million a year, but this year in FY15, FY16, we have a little bit favorable numbers, Melissa, right, on debt service, which is helping dollar per kgal. In addition, our O&M right now, the forecast, our methodology is $136 million. But we believe by the end of the year that number will be in the 120s. Last year was $119 million. We won't be as low as last year. We had a couple one-time favorable, favorable expenditures. In a sense, one example, we used $15 million of that $120 or $130 million O&M is just utility bills. And utility bills for water is electric bills. So, when we had the fuel discount last year, that saves like $500,000. We hope to have that for all our customers, including the water wastewater system, most especially our 400,000 external customers. But we have some one-time savings. So we believe we'll be in the 120s. As months go down, we'll keep on seeing that 136 going down a little bit. And then the capital. Capital is very important in the water sewer system and the electric system. We know, I got a slide to show here in a minute. Mr. Townsend certainly reminds me every month that you should know the question, Brian. So we have a slide to try to help some of the questions. Our capital forecast right now is $125 million. Last year we spent $77. We have $2.7 billion worth of assets in the water sewer system. And they have average life anywhere, and Janet's has the exact schedules, 25, 30 years on paper. Some last 40 or 50. So we need to spend about $100 million a year for R&R CapEx replacement, and then you have growth periods. So we'll be in the low hundreds this year. I wanted to highlight several of our expenditures in the CapEx in the water wastewater. And Paul and I were talking the other day, we probably bring some slides every few of these presentations to highlight some of the capital improvements we're doing in the system. So for this month, one slide is our focus on our treatment plants. And I've mentioned these before, but I think graphical it helps. Arlington East, we're going to spend $12 million into Arlington East wastewater treatment plant. That's going to increase capacity from 19 to 23 MGD. It also helped the process. When these 4 plants, 3 are built now, and Greenland's going to be the future, they're all about 90% of capacity. And when you're in a plant that's 90% capacity, it's a little tougher to make sure you run, to make sure you're at optimum reliability and nitrogen reduction. So in addition to capacity, it's going to help us make sure we keep the nitrogen numbers low in Arlington. Mandarin plant, $9 million, mostly process improvement. We're expanding our reclaim system a little bit there by increasing our disinfection and UV process, equalization in tanks. And then most importantly, in our large figure is the Blacksford plant, $53 million that's going to be spent over the next 3 fiscal years to expand that plant. But those plants, Mandarin, Blacksford, Arlington East, and Greenland, all tie together. So what we're going to do is the shaded area in the bottom there, over the next 10 years, we will move flow between those 3 areas. So we're going to build some capacity at Blacksford, and over the next 10 years, we will shift flow to make sure that we don't go over capacity in any plant, but we don't want excess capacity either. So we're going to utilize the plants accordingly. And that construction should start about 12 months from right now on Blacksford plant. We're actively engaged with our engineering firm at 30% design. The next slide, we'll look at our customer metrics. Excuse me, Paul? Sorry.
Right on that last slide, could you give the board an idea of where things flow from? Not every plant, but the distance in which the waste flows.
Yeah, and it changes over time. So right now, in the bottom right here, Nocatee flows up through Mandarin, which is right by almost the Buttman Bridge. You can picture Nocatee to Mandarin. And then Arlington East is in that area of the top right, the shaded colors. And if I'm asking it right, all that goes to Arlington East. And over by the Town Center right now goes to Arlington East. So if you put a new neighborhood south of Town Center, right now it will connect in through Deer Creek neighborhood and go all the way up to Arlington East. But we're looking at how to move that to Mandarin, and one day that will be built at the Greenland plant. The Greenland plant is not built yet, but we're going to buy land now, and I skipped that by accident. I'm glad Paul caught me there. We're going to look at buying land the next couple of years for approximately $8 million to build a plant that will be built in 2025 approximately. And when that plant gets built, it's going to be a $50 million plant 10 years down the road. So we're trying to manage all that area. You want more local as you can, because we're pumping stuff 15, 20 miles down the road. I mentioned the $15 million electric bill, and you're pumping sewage. It also has environmental concerns, and we manage it well, but we're looking at how to make sure we manage it more optimally
Did you
over
say
time.
Deer Creek to Town Center, or Town Center to Deer Creek?
It goes all the way up to Arlington East. Those neighborhoods, you're building new neighborhoods. We're building a new neighborhood. We have to run it up through pipes to go up to Arlington East, reclaim. And I have Carl Hankin here with me, who's responsible for delivery of these projects, but also the reclaim system and system plan of this. And that doesn't mention pumping sludge underneath the river to Buttman to get treated. That's another day, another 30 million. So on our customer metrics, the first month we've done well on the outages, no major outages in the month. Water distribution pressure less than 30 psi. We have a little uptick in the month compared to the last 8 or 9 months, but we're still very low compared to previous years. And one of those places was up in the Highlands area, because we only have one plant that really serves that area, but we have a new water plant getting built over the next 2 years that will help improve the reliability. If one plant goes down to help backfeed the grid so you won't see low pressure incidents. And then our customer tickets, we're doing fine on the 69 minutes response time. The next one, CUP. The CUP is the one metric that we report on a calendar year basis instead of fiscal year basis, because that's the way the St. John's River Management does it. We'll be fine this year, but the CUP is a 17-year project and an infinite long project. And Board Member Albee report has some water supply report after this presentation. We also, starting in January, will have to monitor our south grid allocation. So I will show a slide when it starts in January on occasions that shows that certain plants in the south grid, we have to utilize less water than we had allocated in previous years. So overall, we look fine, 31.5 billion gallons compared to 46.5. But we'll have to manage each individual plants, and that's part of our CUP condition. So we'll show some of that. The next slide is the real good news. Nitrogen. Last year we were under 600 tons. Right now our projection is 606, and we believe as things go along, we have a good winter that will be in the 500 tons of nitrogen again.
There was some discussion about the city buying some of our credits. Has that come to fruition?
Not total fruition. Bud's been working with Jim Robinson and Jody, but we're fairly close, correct?
Oh, yes, correct.
Okay.
We're working on that with Jim Robinson. We've agreed on the terms, we're just working on the contractual language. Then, of course, we'll have to get your approval when the city does.
And we had a slide on my desk today for a rating agency that mentions that. It's about $2.5 million a year to sell about 20 tons. And it's a lot more effective for us to do it efficient, and it's a good deal for everybody. SSOs, we had one SSO last month, so that's great. Doing a real good job on SSOs, sanitary sewer overflows. On the revenues and expenses, just to highlight, our revenues we're estimating to be forecasting $414 million this year. We're at 408 last year. We do have, last year was our record low in consumption, unit sales. We were at 32.5 billion, the lowest since 2002. Almost 25% low. We budgeted, and Melissa has in our financial projections, 33 billion. It's kind of a flat line. So if the 33 billion come along, we'll be several million higher in our revenues, and then our expenses fall down, and our capital program at 125 million, and we're going to generate some current year revenues, because we need a lot more capital next 2 years to pay for the plant expansion on that slide I showed. And then rates, we're right in the middle of the pack in the state, and we're not moving. So hopefully others will move above us.
Any
We're not moving up, at least.
intelligence from around the state as to what the trends are?
Yeah, we know, and Miami's not even on this chart because it's so low. Miami's got a up to a $12 billion program, so we know they're going to have to double or triple the rates. We keep on seeing over the next 10 years, if you spend $12 billion, that's what they're going to have to do. We know that Tampa's low right now, and Tampa has some high O&M costs with their desalination plants. We see that some movement. And then you see in $1 or $2 at a time, the beaches utility just went up, I think, $5 last month. And they were already to the right of us already, but they moved a little bit further to the right. So you're starting to see a little bit of that movement. I think very few people are going to say they would keep stable rates for the next 3 to 5 years like we are.
Good.
Mike, you're up.
Good afternoon. A couple of similar slides for the electric system. First, operations report for the year. Costs up first. Of course, we're 1 month into the year. Forecasts are a little premature. But on the cost side, so Brian talked about water's $4 a kgallon, sewer's $8 a kgallon. Electricity is just shy of $100 per 1,000 kilowatt hours. Our target for the year is 93.07, and our budget is higher than that at 93.61. Current forecast is 92.45, so we are currently $3.80 better than budget and better than target. A little higher than last year's actual, however. At this point in the game, 1 month in, fuel is a positive. If you look at the top row, our fuel rate is 43.60. The budget we did back in the spring summer was 41.96. As it stands today, we're projecting a $39.02 per megawatt hour. So we've seen favorable movement in the price of both coal and petcoke, our solid fuels, as well as natural gas. And that compares quite favorably against last year's 41.22, which was a little high. The previous 2 years were around $39. So that fuel rate has gone from 41.22 last year down to a projection of around 39 this year. In pretty good shape there, and that's helping keep the overall bottom line in good place. If you look at the financial section, zeroing in on the fuel revenues and expenses, in particular the net, what's important is the net. We budgeted a $13 million surplus, and we've had a $35 million favorable shift in the last 6 or 7 months. So we're currently expecting to end the year at 48. Last year's -3, you have to adjust the $26 million fuel refunding that we did mid-year. So we did better than that to the point of about 23 million. So we are in good shape on fuel. Thus far, O&M capital, we're 9 million collectively better than budget. And again, it's real early on that. Last year's budget, Brian talked about capital a little bit. We budgeted 108, we spent 86. We're up to something that's more normal and indicative of typical capital spending, somewhere between 120 and 130. It's not, as opposed to saying the 120 is high, I think the 100 to 86 was just a real unusually low spend year for a number of reasons. We didn't have a whole lot of work going on in our generating plants, and the low growth has contributed to capital remaining down. So that's that. We did have a increase in O&M year over year. I'll talk about that in a future slide. On the electric reliability metrics, as we see month after month, we've had a 6 to 7 year improvement in terms of fewer outage events, outage frequency, shorter outage duration, 76 minutes over the course of a year for a typical customer when the lights are out. That contributes to the 99.986% availability. Transmission fault frequency indexes has trended down. These numbers are pretty good relative to targets this year. In all 3 cases, we've had some good improvement over the years and have stabilized out and flattened out a little bit. Our focus through our strategic initiative is on this SEMI-5 metric. Customers experiencing more than 5 outages in the last year. So that's where we have a lot of focus. You can see that we made our goal last year. The goal last year was 2.5. We came in under that. We've actually slipped the first month. October went up to 2.75. And if you can see there, the goal line over to the right has been dropped to 1.5, perhaps a bit of a stretch. We had 2 years ago set a goal for this metric of 1% by 2016. So we were at 2.5% last year. to get to 1.0 in 2 years. We kind of came down to that 1.5 point for the coming year. We expect to see, despite the fact that we backslid up this last month, we expect to see, you're going to see some month-to-month variations. We expect to see continued over time reduction in that particular key indicator. Very positive story on the generating unit performance. Good performance the last couple of years. Year to date, we're at 0.7. Median in the industry is 5%, 2.5%. Forced outage rate is top quartile. Anything better than 1% is top decile. So year to date, we're at 0.7. Northside 3 is at 0, so that's perfection from a forced outage rate perspective. Brandy Branch combined cycle 0. Last fiscal year 14, the Brandy Branch combined cycle unit finished at 0.5%, 0.5%, which is a record for that particular unit, and it's continued to perform well. We are in the middle of having some successful planned outages this fall. You know, we tend to take our units out in the fall and the spring. We've successfully completed work on Northside 2. It came back over the weekend, on schedule, on budget. We got Northside 1 out. It'll come on the end of this month. Then we have a short 10-day outage planned on the combined cycle unit. That'll get us ready for the winter, even though the winter's already here this week. But we'll be ready to go for the winter run. Things are doing well. Environmental compliance is solid. We have a couple of events per year that are in the realm of water, wastewater spills. They're not air emission violations, and we're 0 year to date through 1 month. This is a shot of the fuel forecast for the year. See that we budgeted the 13 net, currently at 48. For the month of October, we budgeted $38 million in expenditures. I'm sorry, we budgeted $40 million in expenditures. We spent 38. Even though unit sales-wise in the month of October, we were fairly good. We actually were higher October this year than we were the previous October, and a little ahead of the game in terms of the forecast for unit sales. So that reduction in spend was not due to reduction in unit sales. You can see throughout the rest of the year, the white bars are the original budget. Blue bars are where we currently have the forecast. So the blue bars change each month, and you can see every month we've got a surplus against budget. So we will continue to watch that during the coming year. Hope to be talking about an opportunity to do either a refunding and/or some rate action in the spring, or as we move into the summer. Projected balance again, $48 million, with 154 in the fuel fund. On the financial performance, our comparing 14 actual to the 15 forecast, essentially, you know, down a little bit on the unit sales, 125,000, but all in all, flat year over year. A little bit of an increase in revenues because in fiscal year 14 we had the fuel refunding. So, but for that, we'd be projecting to be down a little bit on revenues. As I mentioned earlier, the fuel is in real good shape, for $32 million favorable year-to-year shift on that one. O&M is up, $38 million, actual to forecast. Salaries, benefits, pension, medical, those are some of the drivers. In addition, every year we have planned outages on generating units, and sometimes we have a lot, sometimes we had a little. Last year we had very little. This year we've got a fair amount of O&M expense on the generating units. So those are contributing to that $30+ million increase. Non-fuel purchase power, that's SGRPP and plant share, and it's basically O&M and debt service, down 63 year over year. That is mainly for principal and interest for SGRPP. Part of the plan for those units as we approach 2022 is a planned, we had a planned reduction this year in principal and interest on those units. So this is per the schedule and per the plan, and that's contributing to that significant reduction in that line item. Debt service up 30. Part of that is the assumed interest rate on our variable interest. We assumed 3%. We did better than that last year, so that's giving you a year-over-year variance. We expect to pull $113 million out of operations to fund capital, OCO and R&R, and again, our capital forecast at this point is $120. And you can see over on the left the projected debt service coverage, liquidity. Expect to pay off over $200 million in debt to get us down to around 72% debt-to-asset ratio by year end. And this is where we stack up on rates, about the same as it has been the last few months, pretty much in the middle of the pack. And if you zero in on the blue, which is the utility charges without all the other stuff on top, we're actually cheaper than Tallahassee, even though they're to the left of us, and we're cheaper than Beaches Energy, even though they're to the left of us. So it's pretty much right in the middle of that pack. The high guys have been high and they remain high. FPL remains on the bottom, due predominantly to their fleet is heavy nuclear and heavy natural gas, and they're enjoying the low natural gas prices. Questions?
Question for Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Monica?
Good afternoon. Well, for our customer operations report for this month, we are officially starting our fiscal year 15. We have our first wave for both residential and business, as we shared last month. And I'm just going to say it again because it's so great to say. We are in the top quartile nationally for both our residential and our business market for our first wave. Surveys are out in the field currently for wave 2 for both the residential and business market, and we should have some preliminary results coming in early part of 2015. For our operational report for 2015 for customer experience, the format's going to look a little different. So since it's really our first month of the year, I'm going to talk a little more about what we're focusing on in 2015 because 1 month of data obviously is pretty new in the game. What you'll see is we've structured our report to align with JEA's strategic plan on earned customer loyalty. So our 3 areas of focus of being easy to do business with, empowering customers to make informed decisions, and then demonstrating our community responsibility. In addition, we have aligned our focus areas or our key initiatives with the drivers of satisfaction. So that's really what the headings on top say to help navigate through that. So for be easy to do business with in the customer service driver, one of the things that we're looking at is really our transactional volume and how customers are coming to do business with JEA. The reason why this is important is because what we are learning more and more is that the 24/7 operation through JEA.com and our telephone IVR has very high satisfaction for our customers. The great news is, as you see from the first month of the year, of October, about 60% of our customers are doing business with JEA through JEA.com or our IVR. We also are focusing again this year on first contact resolution. This was an area that we started focusing on quite a bit last year. We fell short of our goal, but we kept our goal up there because we want to improve in that. It's an important part of customer satisfaction. The good news is for the first month of the year, we have accomplished our goal. We've put a lot of focus on the trends and the information we learned from our customers. And we still have a few key areas that we're working on as our CC&B project goes live in the upcoming months. We have some changes to processes and automation that will help us in that area. Easy to do business with is our power quality and reliability. Mike talked a lot about our focus on improving our CME5, improving our reliability. Equally important is how well we communicate and respond to customers when we have an outage. The great news is, if I can point out on this graph, in 2013, less than 25% of our customers who were calling us to report an outage were requesting callbacks for status updates. Now we have that number closer to 45 to 50%, and we want to improve that even further for this year. That's a big driver to satisfaction. Just as interesting food for thought, you might be interested to know that with yesterday's outage, which was rather, a large outage for us, we had almost 50% of our customers request callbacks. And the majority of the customers reported their outage and got information of their outage through our IVR system, over 12,000 customers from those that were out. We still had a pretty high volume of customers opt to speak to an agent, which we want to continue to improve that because, of course, when we have that many calls coming in at the same time, hold times are long. So we still have some opportunity. We also had about 6,000, 7,000 customers go to JEA.com.
to continually monitor our outage map and see how things were progressing. For empowering customers to make informed decisions, as we talked quite a bit last year, being aware of and participating in certain billing and payment programs or customer solutions really drives satisfaction. We're really raising the bar this year. Our goal this year for our e-billing is to either get in line or surpass what the industry benchmarks are, which means we have to make a pretty substantial jump in our number of participants. Likewise, you'll see for budget bill and auto pay, we're somewhere between 4% and 6% of our customers being enrolled in those programs, where the industry respectively is at 11% and 14%. We're going to work to make some lofty gains in that area, maybe even hitting what the industry benchmark is, but our goal is to make some serious ground in 2015 and then close that gap in 16. Again, customers on these programs have significantly higher satisfaction. Watching how our customers pay their bills equally. Customers who pay through electronic means have higher satisfaction than those who write a check or come into a branch. Right now, JEA is continuing to do quite well with 60% of our customers paying electronically, whereas the industry is closer to the 50% mark. With that, we're going to continue to put our focus there. Specifically in 2015, we'll be looking to have more customers hopefully sign up for our auto pay program. For communication, as we also know, our customers want us to communicate directly with them. They want us to be their first accurate source of information and to be transparent. So we also continue to look at our communication awareness, which you can see off to the side has continued to grow year over year, and we'll continue to put that focus into play. We are putting a lot more focus on our digital or our e-communications through electronic newsletters, through our website, through social media, as well as Sherry shared with you in her introduction today, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is our new ambassador program as well.
How are we promoting our JEA Drive Clean program?
Actually,
I've seen very little about it, but
it actually was a focal point of our communications for the month of October. And so we had it featured in our bill insert. We had our website, and we did quite a bit of social media, Facebook tweets on that as well. We actually had the vehicle in the Veterans Parade in November, which we had a group of employees working with. So we're continuing to try to do that, and I believe we also have some paid media on it.
are all of the car dealerships aware of the program?
I believe so. I think our rebate team has worked with the local dealerships. I can verify that, and I also believe if it's not already out there, we've been working on point of purchase also for the electric vehicle, so that is a part of our rebate programs.
Okay.
We've had 10 rebates issued so far in our month and a half. So, for volunteering, we are going to continue to put our focus on our employees volunteering and giving back to the community through their time and their service. We set a record in 2014 for JEA with 700 employees volunteering at countless events, and we're going to try to hit that and surpass that again this year. Sherry talked about our new ambassador program. This is a new and expanded program. Our goal is to have 700 JEA employees get trained and go out and participate in community events, speak at speakers bureaus, give facility tours, and as you can see, our Veterans Day Parade for November was one of our first programs. For demonstrating community responsibility, this goes into our corporate citizenship with environmental. Here we are highlighting our different demand-side management programs, from our online and in-person home energy assessments, our various rebate programs, our neighborhood energy efficiency, which are largely our low-income weatherization programs, and we will also include our electric vehicle rebates on here. I'll have that added for next month so we can see how we're doing in those. An area we didn't report on much last year, and we're going to put more focus on sharing with you this year, is really the amazing work that JEA does in working with our less fortunate customers who struggle to pay their bills. In 2014, over $3 million of federal, state, and local assistance was provided to, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of 9,000 customers. We do this by partnering with over 25 local nonprofits and agencies. Over half of that funding does come from federal dollars, federal LIHEAP program. We're working very hard this year to increase our partnership with our local nonprofits and to increase our funding of neighbor to neighbor so that we can expand our assistance. And then finally, another way that JEA provides assistance to customers is by providing payment plans and in some cases payment arrangements for customers who just need a few more days to pay their bill. We do this. You can see in the magnitude of some, around 20,000 pay plans this month were issued, and those are giving usually up to about a 9-day extension for people to pay their bills.
Monica, do we see a spike at this time of the year
Yes.
because of the holidays? Do we normally, people make decisions, I don't want to make some assumptions here, but as we move into the holiday season, do we see this is that time when we
October, interestingly enough, September and October is historically one of our highest months of pay plans. We've never quite exactly figured out why, but the trend is definitely there. What's important to share is over 70% of the pay plans that are made are kept, and I think that's really important to show the good faith in that work. And so we continue to work on trying to find the right balance in refining our policies and our programs around that, because of course it's also recognizing if you extend out too much, you end up creating such a gap and a hole that the positive intent becomes an unintended consequence, and so it's working that balance.
So the communication one-on-one becomes absolutely critical to getting some sort of a positive outcome.
Absolutely.
Or productive outcome, I should say.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you to Brian, Mike, and Monica. As we look at our agenda, is there any new business to come before the board? I have one. Mr. Chairman Townsend, as you and I begin to look at our term limits here, we are also looking at a nominating committee, and as you have known in the past, it has usually been past chairs who head up the nominating committee. We have one, that would be you. So I'm giving you a little run time as you can begin to officially look at bringing back at the appropriate time and in the appropriate Senate a nominating slate.
Mr. Chairman, I love surprises.
Yes, I just want you to know, so I've gone ahead and put you on your record, so that would be our news, so I want that on the record. Any old business come before the group? Terrific. At this time, I want to turn the meeting over to our very capable Finance and Audit Chair, Mr. Peter Bowers, for a report on the Finance and Audit Committee meeting, which I think will have everyone's attention.
Good afternoon. This afternoon, we had our Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and the committee received a presentation and a white paper from the staff outlining JEA's response to the letter received on February 17th of this year from the Office of the Mayor, requesting an additional $40 million for 10 years from JEA. This was to help in closing the gap on the unfunded liability for the police and fire pension fund. The staff has engaged Gabriel Roeder Smith, a nationally recognized actuarial firm. They engaged Ackerman LLP, an expert on the local legal framework and pension issues. Lewis, Longman and Walker, a statewide expert on pension law, and Public Finance Management, a nationally recognized municipal financial advisor, to provide input and expertise on the questions raised in this letter. The letter essentially requested that JEA increase its contribution to the city of Jacksonville by $40 million. And these experts helped analyze the consequences of this. They addressed JEA's most urgent challenges. JEA's sales in electric and water are falling. Costs are rising, including pension costs for JEA's employees and the general employees pension plan. So our own costs are rising as well. JE's debt load is substantially higher than the industry median. We just got some numbers on that. JEA is facing numerous potentially high-cost regulations. We've talked about the new CO2 regulations potentially coming down the line, but there's a myriad of other ones as well. Even if JEA raised rates to cover the additional contribution, any additional contribution puts JEA's credit rating at risk by signaling to investors that the independence of JEA's governance structure is compromised. In 35 years of contributions and agreements, an agreement has never before been interrupted. Our current agreement goes through 2016. JEA has its own unfunded pension liability challenges. Our unfunded liability in the General Employees Pension Fund is about $460 million. So it's a large liability in itself. In short, the analysis of the proposal did not yield any savings and does not enable JEA to increase contributions to the city without jeopardizing JEA's bond ratings and rates. The Finance and Audit Committee voted to accept the report as presented and advance it to the full board for consideration. We voted to accept the report and its conclusions. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion by the full board to accept the report and its conclusions.
So moved.
And second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. In addition to that, though, over the past several weeks, JEA's staff has been engaged in conversations with several leaders in the community with the support of the mayor's office to explore a range of possibilities to the city's current budget challenge. Obviously, the city, and we know it, has had very tight budgetary challenges over the past few years. Conversations centered on possible activities that would have a direct and measurable value to JEA customers and investors, which should not result in rate increases. A comprehensive package of solutions was proposed which could provide some immediate relief to the city's budget challenges. It would secure a long-term contribution agreement more closely tied to utility sales. It would secure control over JEA's portion of the General Employees Pension Plan. That pension plan would come under our control. It would support growth and economic development, specifically related to utility services. One that we're particularly interested in is in the natural gas arena. And address other governance and administrative matters. And for that, we would provide a one-time payment to the city to help with the current budget challenges. This proposal has a long ways to go before it's an agreement, but we did authorize the JEA staff to proceed with negotiating a definitive agreement on the proposed comprehensive package. The agreement will not result in a rate increase or jeopardize JEA's credit ratings. The minuses are offset by the pluses. We think we can clearly show that what we give, we get back. And at the conclusion of negotiating that agreement, we want the final agreement to be brought back to the board so that we could review it and approve it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's the report.
Are we going to, is this a motion or we'll have discussion?
Is it a motion? Yeah.
Yes.
So moved.
Yeah, that will ask the full board to agree to the recommendation of the Finance Committee on this.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
All
I'll second it.
Discussion?
all in favor?
So can I just, on the
Discussion?
discussion, just one question that came
Sure.
up. You know, we talked a little bit at the end about the 120 million in the debt. Just as, Melissa, as you were going through the presentation, we have debt that kind of sits on the books attached to water, the water business, water and sewer business, and then debt that sits on the books that's attached to the electric business. If we went down the path of having to issue new debt, where on the books does that sit, since it doesn't fit under water and sewer or electric? Do we have a, just be a,
Can we answer that one?
yeah.
The caveat is that it's too premature for us to talk about specifically about structure. We've got a long way to go before we get to the final answer on that, but best guess is it might be split between the two liens. Right now, our contribution is paid from both systems, so it might make sense from the perspective of this agreement to look at doing something in both systems, but other color.
But I was asking more out of curiosity as to whether or not there's an entity outside of both of those lines of business that debt can sit. There's no, the way it's set up, it's got to be one line of business or the other, or is there like a holding company set up where you can put debt at a holding company that's secured by a different revenue stream?
From a security of payment perspective, they belong in one or the other. We also have a third district energy system, but that's so small that it wouldn't belong in there.
Okay.
Any other,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is just an observation. Let me give, there's a motion, and I feel a duty to just share some cautionary observations where we're going. Today, in the newspaper on A1, it says we don't have the money, and on A1 it says we don't have the money and we can't proceed. On B1, A1 says we don't have the money and let's go, and we don't have any money. B1 says we have a new proposal that just got rolled out today, that we just heard the details. I want to restate for the record that I heard within that meeting, and this is just coming back to almost 16 years sitting here. On January 28th, there was a not very flattering picture of your chairman sitting there saying he's rather skeptical of the BA1 proposal. What I heard in our meeting today, which I really appreciated from Hussein and the chairman, is that we need to look at this due diligence. And I want to state for the record of who the players are and how we're going to look at the due diligence. Because what I heard from the Finance Committee is that before we would proceed with a vote, that we would understand the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. I just want to make sure that who we're talking about here. We're talking about the JEA, and that's broken into two pieces. One, the leadership team that will begin to evaluate it. This board first through the Finance Committee that will do their due diligence. We then have the administration that has put forth this proposal, and then last is the City Council, because what I'm hearing is that there is pressure on the contribution, and this is going to be a part of the formula that we will look at, because that, as I heard from Melissa, is there is big pressure on because of the contribution. And we've said it's a long way to go. This is an observation of one member on this thing. Perception. I'm not at the City Council. My perception is there hasn't been a lot of collaborative, productive conversations between the City Council and the administration. In order for us to bring forward something that's going to be voted on, we will do our due diligence on this side, but there is going to have to be some assurances, whether it's, and what I heard offline was that we may get this done in 1 month. There hasn't been a lot of productive, positive conversations between the administration and the City Council on some of these issues for months. And I just want to make sure that we look at this and approach this with our eyes wide open, that if, in order to do diligence, we can do our part, but at some point, there's got to be collaboration and productive conversations between the City Council and the mayor and the administration. And so as we go forward this, I would cautionary observation, we are one of the players in this scenario. And I think that we need to understand our role that we play in here, but that we have to have all players at the table to understand that. As one member, my view has not changed on this. We've just had this rolled out to us. You know, I'm thinking, you know, if it sounds too good to be true, the chances are it may be too good to be true. And I'm had the opportunity to sit on this board for almost 16 years, and I am cautiously skeptical of what this is. And I would encourage this board that as you look through, and I got assurances from Chairman Bowers that all Ts would be crossed, all Is would be dotted, and it would be totally vetted. We are volunteer public stewards. What we do here is totally different than a lot of the other independent boards. We make decisions that have a financial impact on the ratepayers, which are broken into two groups, residential and commercial. And as we look forward to this, and I shared this earlier, when we said it would not result in a rate increase or jeopardize our rating. The other issue that I will, because I think this will take some time to get all parties together and discuss this, but one of the issues or one of the criteria that this board put in place as a public policy statement that there would be no new debt. And as we finalize whatever that due diligence is and whatever that proposal will be at the end of that journey and the end of that due diligence, that I believe that we have an obligation as a board to address the issue, how do we deal with if in fact we're putting together new debt? Because we made a policy here of no new debt. And if you all remind, if you go back and look at the minutes, if it's not written, it is understood that every time we have Melissa give us a conversation, Melissa shows us where we are with the financials, we talk about no new debt, and we get a huge smile from our secretary over here who has her shirt that has no new debt on it. So as I go through this, and we do our due diligence, ladies and gentlemen, I caution us that we understand that we are a part of this, but whatever decision that we make at the end of that due diligence, at the end of the journey, that we need to make sure that it is in the best interest of our ratepayers and the citizens of Jacksonville and the quality of life that we're doing. And it's a caution. I am skeptical. My skepticism is there. This has gotten rolled out. I'm not sure how the modeling, I'm sure that will be part of the due diligence. But I just, as a cautionary observation, I think that we need to make sure that we are doing what we think is best for the ratepayers and for the city of Jacksonville long-term, because the decision that we will make, if in fact is my understanding from the way it was presented, and I've not seen the whole report, that this could be anywhere from 15 to 20 years. Now, that will be long after a lot of us will sit on this board. And I just think as we do our due diligence, Mr. Chairman, which you've assured us that we will, that we just take in consideration that what we will be doing here is long-term. And so I just put that on the record. But I totally support that we should authorize JEA staff to proceed with, when it says negotiating, if understanding that negotiating a definitive agreement is part, that due diligence is part of that, then I'm all for it. But I think we have a responsibility to make sure that we do this right and that we go in that with our eyes wide open, knowing that there are more players than just us involved.
Mike, I want to assure you that, first of all, this is coming back to the board before it's ever agreed to by us. I can't tell you exactly what the time frame will be, but I hope and believe you will still be on the board, and you will have an opportunity to say anything you want about the agreement. I understand the concern about new debt. I think we can show this as a self-liquidating item. Now, we're playing semantics, and it is semantics, but it will be a self-liquidating item. And we will not proceed with anything until we get buy-in by all the other entities as well. I mean, there is no way we're transferring any funds until we are absolutely assured that this is a ironclad agreement that stands and benefits JEA and its rate holders over a long period of time. And we believe it will. And we are hopeful that it actually does come to pass, and that it helps the city of Jacksonville as well. But it certainly benefits us.
Yeah, and you know, Mr. Chairman, if I could just add to what I said earlier, it's, you know, I understand where you're coming from with the sense of skepticism, but I think we're at a point right now where, you know, the hope is what we discussed earlier today creates a sense of optimism for people to say, let's get into a room and try to figure this out, recognizing that JEA for, you know, the first time collectively as a board has kind of signaled that we are willing to be part of a solution, but we're not going to be the solution. And I think that's a very important signal that we're sending to the city and the other stakeholders. And to be clear, I see this simply as, you know, there'll be a chart, and it's, you know, a give and get chart. We're going to give certain items, but we're going to get something in return. And yes, when JEA staff stands at the podium and talks about our debt situation, we all agree that we are moving in the right direction. But at the same time, there's another slide that they bring up at every meeting, which is our annual contribution to the city. And we all sit here and say that's going in the wrong direction. And so I personally am equally focused on getting that annual contribution moved in a different direction, meaning lower. And if in order to get something like that for the long-term financial stability for JEA, we have to give something up front, I'm open to the concept, as long as all of those pieces come back in agreement together. We're not going to negotiate each of these items in a vacuum, hoping that people remember that we were, you know, that we gave something in January, and when we get to March, they give something back. So I feel the protection is there. If the deal comes back and we don't like it, we vote it down. And if we like it, it's contingent on, you know, the administration and the city council ratifying it as well. So I think the protections are there. I think there's no downside in giving management the ability to negotiate the best deal they can for us. And they've never shown that, you know, they would ever give anything back or give anything without them getting a good return for the ratepayers.
I totally, yeah.
I agree with your wise warning to be cautious. And I think we all share that idea that it's good to be cautious. It's very important to have the most robust due diligence possible. I have no doubt that that's what will transpire. When I was first briefed on this, my first question was, what about no new debt? And after lengthy discussions, I became convinced preliminarily that the debt will be offset by savings. And I will say, for the record, if that's not the case, I will have trouble supporting it.
Can we move forward with the motion to empower staff to continue on with the negotiations?
I think there's a motion in a second.
I second, yeah. Call the
All in
question.
favor?
Aye.
So moved. That, Mr. Chairman, is my report.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to call on Vice Chair, EPA Committee Chair Lisa Weatherby to report on the EPA Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking of potentially high-cost new regulations that just came in stereo my way. Hopefully
Thank you
only
for your
one-
service.
Hopefully only one of them will be high cost, and not so much. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion, second, and a vote to approve the October 10th, 2014 EPA Committee meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. At our last meeting, Nancy Kilgo, the Director of Government Affairs, provided an overview of JEA's final comments on the EPA proposed Clean Power Plan. Final comments are due to the EPA on December 1st. Committee members provided staff with feedback and suggestions. We expect the EPA will publish additional information about the treatment of biomass soon. Nancy Kilgo also provided the committee with an update on recent EPA activities. On October 28th, the EPA issued a notice of data availability on the proposed Clean Power Plan, asking for additional comments in 5 areas where the EPA has received major feedback. These areas include, number 1, the stringency of the interim goal. Number 2, building block 2, redispatch of coal to natural gas. Building block 3, methodology for renewable energy. And point number 4, using 2012 as the baseline for reduction goals. Nancy got to do a lot of talking at this meeting. She also provided the committee with a list of JEA activities, including that the JEA staff had a conference call with EPA staff in Atlanta and Washington, D.C., about the treatment of interstate energy, including ownership and power purchase agreements. On November 3rd, Paul McElroy, Bud Para, and Nancy Kilgo met with Lisa Edgar, Commissioner of the Florida Public Service Commission, in Tallahassee to express JEA's concerns. JEA responded to a request for additional information from the Florida Public Service Commission, and JEA has continued to work with American Public Power Association, Large Public Power Council, Florida Municipal Electric Association, Florida Electric Power Coordinating Group, Environmental Committee, and others. The EPA committee will meet again in February of 2015. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This concludes the EPA committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me call upon Secretary Albee to provide a report on the water supply planning activity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I met with the staff on August 28th and also on November 7th of this year, and the topics we discussed were as follows. The district water supply plan. The St. Johns River Water Management District is making modifications to its draft water supply plan, clarifying that the Floridan aquifer will meet projected water demands for the next 20 years with the existing commitments to continued conservation and reclaimed water system expansion. On the North Florida Regional Water Supply Planning Partnership, the Swanee River Water Management District and the St. Johns River Water Management District continue working to complete a joint water supply plan which would cover both districts in North Florida. JEA is participating actively in these planning processes as part of the North Florida Utility Coordinating Group to promote the use of sound science to ensure long-term aquifer sustainability and to ensure equitable allocation amongst user groups. The reclaimed water system expansion. The district reaffirmed its commitment to assist JEA to ensure golf courses and new developments connect to the reclaimed water system. The district will continue its joint funding program for reclaimed and other water resource projects. The district is also seeking partners to evaluate long-term aquifer sustainability projects, such as targeted reclaimed water expansions and aquifer recharge, wherein the district or state would provide nearly full funding for these feasibility studies. The district and JEA have agreed to perform a high-level desktop feasibility evaluation using effluent from JEA's Southwest wastewater treatment plant in the evaluation. Just going off script, on Sunday night on 60 Minutes, they had a report regarding the California aquifer and the use the enormous amount of water being pumped out of the aquifer there in the Central Valley for the agricultural system. And if you can get it on YouTube or what have you, it's a stunning report. And while we continue to work with the districts on their requirements for JEA, I will say that we have all partnered to really protect the Floridan aquifer. And after seeing that report, I certainly appreciate everyone's efforts. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. I underscore the newscast that went on that it sort of said just how we happen to live above a great gift, and that is the aquifer. And as we did as it was shared by Chairwoman Weatherby with this one, JEA has a long-term reputation and a statement there that we have been and always have been stewards of the environment, and both the issue under CO2 as well as the water. From a public policy perspective, we have a huge responsibility and a huge opportunity to partner with everybody. And all you have to do is see what has happened out in California when people did not talk and weren't listening to each other, and where do they go from here? And I think the other is everyone has probably seen, if I'm not mistaken, Lake Mead in there. If something isn't done, that within less than 15 years, Lake Mead will just be a huge hole. And no one ever thought when it was put there it would do it. So I've spoken with Bud Para on this, that both on the CO2, forget politics and partisanship on all this. You will find both in Washington and in Tallahassee, both on the issue of CO2 and on water, both these issues at the state and federal level are going to become huge debate issues and public policy issues, both at the state level and there. So the great work that Chairwoman Weatherby and Albee are doing right now, I think it's going to be in everyone's best interest for us to stay current, because these are issues that if we don't look at it, that's a train light coming in the tunnel. It's not the light at the end of the tunnel, and we need to be sensitive to that. So, but again, I think that JEA and the board, and particularly senior leadership, has always said that we are stewards of the environment. But I think by the due diligence and the work that y'all are doing now is going to help us down the road. So I say to both of you, thank you in doing that. Thank you for your report. Managing Director, CEO's report. Mr. Paul, you're up.
Mr. Chairman and board members and JEA team, happy Thanksgiving. Have a wonderful holiday season. It's a season of joy and Thanksgiving for all we have. It's also a season of stress. So my personal safety tip for all of you is be on the lookout for those that might be absorbing more stress than necessary during the joyous holiday time, and give them a pat on the back and sit them down and tell them to relax and go with the flow. So that's my happy Thanksgiving.
No. I think you was going to the front row.
Melissa, on my report, let me just say, since we've already talked about the great work that's being done out there and what they did last night, I was going to share as we get ready from the chairman's report, as we get ready to go to New York, I want to say to you specifically, but to Brian and Mike and to the rest of the group, and particularly Monica, I think that given this last year and the work that has been done by leadership, we're going, all of us are going to be going up. We have our newest member, Hussein, going with us to New York. And we're going to have, I think, very productive and positive conversations with the rating agency. And it's because of the work, first it was done by the senior leadership team. And I also think it's by the decisions that were made on the recommendations by this board on the recommendations of the leadership team. So where I was coming from, Monica, is that, and Melissa particularly, is that I think we are prepared to go to New York. I think we have a story to tell. I think we have the proof and the validation of the work that is done every day by not only the leadership team, but our employees every day. And I want to commend my colleagues, is that I think we're going to have the opportunity to sit down. There are going to be some insightful and probably tough questions, but I think that thanks to what has been done by this board and thanks to the work that every day that's done by our employees, but what's done by the leadership team, that we're going to be able to present, I think, a very good picture of where we are, what we're doing, and where we're going. And that's my report. Anything else to come before the board? Otherwise, yes, ma'am.
I have one thing. I do want to say thank you to Paul. I came here a couple weeks ago and had a meeting. At the end of the meeting, I had a definite ask, and I got asked for some pens, the JEA pen that you have, for my friend who was giving a presentation at Daniel, and she said that the kids loved the pens. That was the highlight of their little goodie bag, so thank you again.
There you go.
Very good.
Anything else to come before the board? Thank you all very much. We adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.